Welcome, everybody, to the Fixin Your Crown Boo podcast. Just as always, a reminder, it's a podcast interview dope people in leadership who use the model of servant leadership and are driven by emotionally intelligent driven leadership models and are passionate about lifting others up to empower their success because the pie, it really is big enough for all of us and we can find a seat at the table. I'm your host today. My name is JD Johnson. I'm a coach, consultant, and career strategist turned entrepreneur. And I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, but I've been living and working in the Bay Area for the last 10 years. I have over 20 years of experience in a variety of industries. This includes manufacturing, telecommunications, customer experience, retail, CPG, and technology. And I've spent the last 8 years as a consultant with expertise in project, program, as well as a nice little dash of change management. My consulting career is where I found a passion for leadership development and emotionally intelligent driven leadership frameworks and styles. I would love to change the organizational culture landscape by transforming the relationship between employers, managers, and employees by addressing how new and emerging managers and leaders are prepared for the people side of leading teams. I'm here today with my guest, Coach Vic Nichols. He is a dynamic executive coach and seasoned leader in the talent and development organizational culture space. He's passionate about helping leaders grow to serve better those who they've been responsible for. Vic designs and facilitates transformative learning experiences that effectively shift mindsets, strengthen culture, and drive performance. Throughout his extensive career at Genentech and Total Logistics, Vic has consistently empowered individuals and organizations. He's so proud to have coached over 2,000 individuals to achieve their goals and was instrumental in creating impactful employee resource groups with One Government's model adopted enterprise-wide. His experience spans high visibility marketing campaigns, strategic DEI initiatives, and meticulous design of programs that foster inclusive leadership and deliver measurable employee engagement. Coach Vic, he blends strong commercial acumen with a genuine passion for people development, making him a trusted advisor for leaders seeking to build high-performing, inclusive, and future-ready teams. Welcome, Coach Vic.
Oh my goodness, that intro was absolutely amazing. I hope I can get the recording for myself just to play it back. I want to just play it for my family anytime they're giving me a hard time.
Love it. Absolutely. We'll get this over to you and I can send it to you.
I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. I just wanted to make sure, was there anything else you wanted to add to your intro or bio that I might have missed?
Probably that I am a proud husband, father, brother, and friend. It matters to me because I've gotten to the place that I'm in because of those people, because of that community, that support system. I am nothing without them, and I won't continue to elevate unless I have them in my corner. So those relationships mean just as much to me in terms of getting the accolades and the spotlight shined on them for how they've helped me to succeed in life.
Oh, I love that. And I think support systems are so key in order to enable success. I think when you look at any really successful person, they've all had something in their corner, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a family member that cheered them on. They've all had some sort of support system that has really helped enable their growth and success.
Absolutely.
All right. So just getting into all the fun stuff and the basics. I think we mentioned earlier before we started recording, that you went to Eastern Kentucky University, but you're originally from Florida?
Yeah. Football took me out of the state of Florida. I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship to Eastern Kentucky University some many years ago. I had dreams and aspirations of playing professional ball. Those dreams weren't realized, but the University of Eastern Kentucky definitely taught me a lot. It gave me some lifelong friendships. It helped really set the foundation for some of my professional skills and capabilities that I'm still utilizing today. I had no idea they were going to help me in the way that they have, but so much of my relationship building skills come from my time in being in remote Richmond, Kentucky.
Ooh, so you weren't just in Kentucky, you were in was it rural out there?
I felt like it was rural coming from Orlando, Florida, but people who are from the area might not feel like it's as rural.
So my first degree was in history. And so I know I do nothing related to history, but I always feel the lessons that I learned being a history major were really impactful. So with your first dream being football, how do you feel your first degree really sets you up for success?
Yeah, actually, I had a dual first dream. My mother was big on academics just as much as athletics. She always ensured that myself and my siblings wasn't necessarily you had a plan B. In addition to plan A, what else are you going to do? And so I wanted to be a lawyer and therefore went to a law magnet high school, got to college, studied political science. And so to answer your question, how did that first degree set me up for my dream? Really and truly, political science taught me how to argue and debate and prove my point and influence. And so I knew that sports was going to be short-lived, but while I'm there, I can make an impact. So how do I influence my teammates? How do I encourage others to get the job done, to stop thinking selfishly and start thinking about the collective? Because when you're a part of a team, yes, you may do your job, but if your teammates don't do their job, it doesn't matter how good you are. You still won't win. You need other people in order to excel and see success. So although I'm not in political science, I did not end up becoming an attorney. That degree definitely prepared me for life after football.
I think it's so true. There's kind of two quotes that I love, which is there's no I in team and teamwork makes the dream work. Because I think that really speaks to the collaborative nature of teams and how important it is it's great that you're a wonderful player or you're a wonderful business person and you can do all these things, but at the end of the day, your team is really what helps carry the day. And we all need to work together to make that dream work.
Absolutely.
Well, thinking about all the things that you've learned since you went to university in Kentucky, lived in Orlando, Florida, and I think now you said you live in Tampa, you lived in Ohio. I'm just curious about your life journey to get to where you are now. And if you want to just talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So Orlando, a lot of people, when they first hear Orlando, they think of Disney World, right? All the theme parks going to Florida and Orlando for vacation, but that isn't the part of town that I grew up on. I grew up in regular Orlando, and quite frankly, it wasn't the most fun place to grow up because although it was culturally diverse, my friend circle, my schools were filled with so many people from different backgrounds and walks of life. However, it was still the rough part of Orlando. Parts that I grew up in, some would definitely refer to as the hood. And at a time that I grew up there, believe it or not, Orlando, Florida was ranked in the top 5 in the country for violent crimes during the 80s and 90s. And so trying to navigate that upbringing, being one of 3 children, single mother, it was challenging. And by the grace of God and my community, I stayed away from trouble. I focused on school. My mom kept us busy, kept us active because she knew she didn't want the streets to claim us. And so that then opened doors to be able to travel to Kentucky and go to school, to then take me to DC. I lived in DC for a year when I really started my professional career after college. And I will tell you, living in DC, I fell in love with that area because prior to moving there, I had this bias about the South versus the North. Yes, I hated the cold, but DC was the first city that I felt like home in the North. It had that Southern vibe and Southern feel. The people were friendly, they were welcoming, they were supportive. It was a great community. But at the time, my wife and I had just started dating, and she was from Cincinnati, Ohio. And so when we talked about where we wanted to settle down and plant some roots, I decided to relocate to Cincinnati because that was what was best for us and our family at that time. And so I am grateful for the experience in DC because it showed me what influence really looks like. It showed me the power of community outside of my own home and what I was used to. And it also showed me growth potential. There's so many people with goals and aspirations, and they're working hard to pursue those dreams. And that opened my eyes to, oh, there are other people like me. My community is bigger than where my zip code resides. So spent time in Cincinnati, Ohio, about 4 years before I convinced my wife that Florida would be a more diverse and better opportunity for us. And I always tell this funny story. I had traveled down with my family to visit my other family in Florida for 3 years straight. And I would always bring them in the summer. And they would talk about how hot it was, my wife and my kids. And then one year we came for Christmas. And so we left a snowstorm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and drove down to Orlando, Florida around Christmas time when the weather is beautiful. And so the next day, my wife and I are walking around my mother's neighborhood. It's a beautiful 75 degrees, no humidity, the sun's out. And she's got on tank top, shorts, flip-flops. And she looks at me and she goes, "Is it like this all the time?" And I go, "Yeah, this is our winter. This is what it's like." She goes, "I'm ready to move." We moved 6 months later. I said, all this time I've been trying to convince her to come down, and I would come in the summer, and all I had to do was wait till wintertime for a snowstorm, and she immediately changed her mind. We haven't looked back. We haven't. So fast forward, we live in the Tampa area. It's been amazing for our kids. They have grown so much. They were born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, but this is definitely their second home. My wife as well. She even considers herself to be a Floridian now. And so the opportunities have continued to open up since coming here, because like I said before, Florida is so diverse. There's so many people that come here from other countries, other backgrounds, ethnicities, parts of the world. And if you put yourself out there, you'll make connections that can be extremely beneficial for you both personally and professionally.
Oh, I can totally relate. As we talked about earlier, I'm from Toronto, Canada. I moved to San Francisco, and I'm still in wonder when I look up and I'm like, oh, it's winter. There's palm trees. I live in a place, but there's palm trees in winter. Although clearly San Francisco is nowhere near as warm as Tampa, Florida, but it's definitely way warmer than Toronto, Canada. So yeah. I can completely relate to winter changing your mind about living someplace different.
Absolutely. I believe in San Francisco, in the summertime, that's considered their winter, and in the fall is when you all actually have summer weather. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. Probably at the end of August, starting in September through to October is when we actually have winter. Right now, it's very spring-like. It doesn't get super hot. We get a few days like that, but for the most part, I'm still thinking Celsius, so it's like 18 degrees on a regular right now.
Wow. That's not bad.
I ain't mad at it. I'm not mad at it. Well, thank you for talking us through your journey, how you went from Florida and Orlando all the way to Cincinnati, Kentucky, DC, and back to Tampa. And so let's talk a little bit about what are you doing right now? We talked about how you design and facilitate transformative learning experiences that shifts mindsets. So I'm just curious, you want to talk a little bit about your journey to get to being this transformative leader and being able to help influence and change people's mindsets.
Yeah. There's a lot of places I could start, but where I'll start professionally is when I transitioned into training and development role, teaching people how to do a job. Really opened my eyes to the power of influence. I learned how to be an effective coach. I learned how to be a facilitator of workshops. And so when you think about the dynamics of trying to influence behavior, it is a delicate process. And the reason that it's delicate is because we as people want to feel we're in control. We as people, what they call adult learning principles, have this inherent need and desire to want to know the why behind things. And so as a facilitator, as a coach, your job in order to help sustain behavioral change is to give people that tangible why so that they can relate to past experiences in this new learning environment and apply them autonomously for themselves, so that your presence isn't the linchpin in whether or not they're going to be successful. And really and truly, no leader wants to stand over the shoulder of their people every single minute of the day, pointing, telling the person where to click. No business can run successfully having their leaders to do that. But unfortunately, for a lot of environments, that's the case. And so for me, I learned that it's important for us to create systems and processes that help our people to autonomously apply the theories, the concepts that they learn in any training setting for themselves, by helping them to connect with the material personally. As you think about this, I remember one time I was coaching this young lady, and she was new to sales, and she was a little hesitant to sell. I could tell it from our initial conversation. And so I asked her, I said, let's take it out of the context of work. When have you ever in your life embarked on something that you had no prior experience with? And she described in college, she just went backpacking in Europe by herself for a whole month. She had told her mom about it. Her mom thought she was crazy, tried to talk her out of it, but she was like, "No, Mom, I really want to do this." And I said, "So how did you get the confidence to do it? And how did you navigate that not having any prior experience?" She said, "Well, I just thought about what it was like to go away to college, and that if I could figure out how to navigate my campus, I could probably figure out how to navigate backpacking in Europe." And so I then drew a connection to, that's what this sales is. You've done something before that you have no prior experience to. So think about your past experiences that you could reference and bring into this new moment to allow you to be successful. And sure enough, she took off from there because it wasn't as scary anymore. She was able to create systems for herself and guardrails that when she felt herself getting a little scary, she could reel it back in. And ultimately, that's what I think people need help figuring out for themselves, is what past experience can I relate to that would allow me to press forward and have the confidence I need to be successful in this moment. And so starting out in training and development showed me how I could influence others. I leaned into leadership development. I got so enamored with that. It was something about the idea of waking up every day and choosing to be a leader that intrigued me, because I think that that's what leadership is. Every day, leadership is a choice. Every day, whether you have a title or not, you have to choose to be a leader. All of us are at least leaders of one direct report when we wake up in the morning, and that's ourselves. When you get up and look in the mirror, you have to choose to lead yourself every single day. And some days are better than others. Some days we lead ourselves confidently and we feel great at the end of the day. And then other days is like, I didn't get anything accomplished today. I don't know about you. Have you ever felt that? You wake up, you go to bed, and you're thinking to yourself, what did I get done yesterday? Right? I didn't do a good job of leading me. And so falling in love with leadership showed me that that's at the start of influence at the organizational level. If you have strong leaders who have strong leadership capabilities, who know how to access those leadership tools in their toolbox, what you'll find is that the rest of the organization runs efficiently, they're high performing, there's a great culture. That it always starts at the top. You could take it out of the context of business and think about households. When the parents, the authority figures in the home, are able to access their leadership capabilities, that household is one to be admired, right? And so for me, training and development led to leaning into leadership development. Leadership development took me on a journey into diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I know right now in some spaces is a dirty word, a dirty phrase, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I'm proud of being a practitioner in this space, because what I understand about diversity, equity, and inclusion at the simplest form is simply creating an environment where people feel comfortable enough to engage with you and you can be your authentic self just as they are being their authentic self. That's no different than inviting someone into your home. You want them to feel comfortable if you're going to host them, right? All I want to know is that we can feel safe around each other. That's all the principles of DEI is, right? Standing up for those voices that tend to be a little bit more quieter, inviting them into the room, being an advocate for those marginalized groups who might not get a fair shake at the opportunities that are available, right? That's all it is somebody standing up for somebody else, AKA being a good person. That's all it is at its core. People try to turn it into something else that it's not. And so where I am in my professional career right now, when I look back, is I've always been the fighter for the underdog. When I think about who I was as a trainer, as a coach, as a leader, I've always looked out for the underdog. And so I've always demonstrated the DEI principles of helping other people succeed and elevate. And so although I am a quote unquote practitioner now, I've always been a practitioner indirectly. And so I'm in a space where I'm looking to leverage all of the industries and spaces that I've dwelled in professionally and personally. I'm trying to merge them and meld them into one right now. And that's why I'm leaning into my executive coaching experience and working with leaders who want to create high performing teams.
Wow, so much to unpack there. So many good, juicy nuggets that you talked through. You talked a little bit around change and how change can be so difficult when you're doing this new thing or you're having to do this thing differently because somebody has decided that that's going to make the world more efficient at your workplace, through to how do you influence people? How do you lead yourself? And I think we talked about this, and we both have blog posts circulating on LinkedIn all around managers not necessarily being prepared for leadership, and leaders just in general not necessarily being prepared for the people side of leading teams and being able to influence and help create culture change, and also provide people with a really compelling why any move is done within the organization. And because if without that why, you leave people behind. Absolutely. And I think there's also something around the idea of when you're leading teams and you're leading organizations, helping them understand how the change is actually beneficial to them as well as the organization. I think you touched on that topic as well. So I don't know where we want to dig in next as we think about those different topics that you really highlighted throughout your story of how did you get to where you are right now.
You tell me, it's your show. Which direction do you want to go?
Well, I think what I really love talking about is how do we set people up for success? Because I think at the core of everything that you've talked about, it's setting people up for success for whatever that next piece and place is. And I'm curious, when you think about how you've reached success and how you help others, what would you say is the most defining moment in your career?
The most defining moment in my career was when I had a manager. I had just become his trainer and loved this guy to death. He is the one who gave me my shot, so to speak. He saw something in me that others didn't, and he took a chance on me. At least I felt like he took a chance. If you ask him today, he'll tell you I was the obvious choice. But we were sitting in his office one day and we were talking about how life works. He said this quote to me. He said, "Life is lived forward and understood backwards." Life is lived forward and understood backwards. And he grabs this piece of paper and he draws this line on it as if you're mapping out a timeline. And he put on one end a 0 and on the other end 80. Because he said, on average, people live to about 80. He put a line halfway through at about 40. And the reason he started out using this example is because I said to him, man, I feel like I should be further along in my career and what I've accomplished by now. This manager took on that line 0 to 18, and then he scratched it out. He said, those first 18 years, we're just kids. We don't know what we really want to do. And so from about 18 to 30 is when we discover what we're good at, some things that we like. And this was the range that I was in. And then he pointed to after 30 to 80, look at how much time is left. Assuming you get to live to be 80, look at how much time you have left to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And when he showed me this timeline at where I was, which I was in my late 20s at the time, he's like, you got so much of your life ahead of you. And this was probably the most defining moment for me because it reinvigorated me around what I could still accomplish. I had looked back at my life, thought that I was going to be in the NFL, thought that I was going to be an attorney because those were my interests at the time. And when those dreams were deferred, it was almost as if I felt like my life was a failure up until that point. And he reminded me that all of us are relatively in the same boat, having the same experience. And we just need some perspective on where we are in life, assuming we get to live it to its fullest. So for me, that was the most pivotal moment, is when I learned that life is lived forward and understood backwards.
Wow, that is so powerful. I think that touches on so many different things. Just thinking about your journey is your own. I think it's so easy to compare yourself, compare your journey. Oh, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Look at these people, they're there. That person's a millionaire, or that person is X, Y, and Z. They've become a lawyer, or they've done this, they're a doctor. What am I doing? But I think that's a really great reminder that our journey really is our own. And we get where we need to go when we need to get there.
Absolutely.
And when we look at the length of our life and we still have so much life to lead, there's so much that we can do for it, as you're saying, if we're invigorated and we recognize that our impact never just ends. We can make impact and influence in so many different ways as long as we keep trying.
Absolutely.
And so as you think about that really defining moment and this transition that you had to become a leader, what would you say was your biggest struggle in this leadership transition?
Oh my goodness. My biggest struggle was expecting me in other people. Oh my God. My family jokes. I definitely have an A-type personality. I'm goal-oriented. I'm ambitious, but I'm willing to work hard to accomplish what I want to accomplish. When I first got into leadership, expecting those character traits to show up in others, especially because we work for the same organization, we're in a similar environment, that was my biggest struggle. And so it forced me to have to pause, hit the reset button, and remember that every person is different. Every person has their strengths and has their opportunities. The question is, how will you as a leader help the people to realize their dreams? That was my weakness, and also the thing that excited me most about becoming a leader, because it was like figuring out the secret sauce, the secret recipe. If I could figure this out in comparison, because I'm competitive, to my other counterparts for my team and the people I'm responsible for, then not only will I elevate my people's results, but I'll elevate our team's results. We will win. Back to my days of being a football player, right? It's like, if I can, what's the quote? Rising tides raises all ships. For me, that's what I was aiming for. And so it was a struggle at first, trying to understand, all right, which attributes that I know help people to be successful does this person possess? Which attributes are not their strong suit, but we can build up? And now let's get creative about how we build those things up. So that was definitely my struggle.
Oh, I could totally see that. Not just for yourself, but just in general, when I think about even just being a part of a team, and we're all assuming our goals are the same, whether that's in school or whether that's in work. And I'm thinking in my head, oh yeah, because we're doing X thing, we are all for the same goal. But I think it's so important to sit back and recognize that not everybody has the same goal for their careers. And that translates into how they look at any shared goal, and how it's so important as a leader to understand what is in it for that person. Why are they doing this thing? Why are they here? Because if you don't understand what motivates and what inspires or what makes people light up, it's really hard to get them on board for any shared goal that you think that you're supposed to have. Absolutely. And so I think that is so key when you talk about seeing yourself and expecting that to be in other people, because we don't all look at the same thing in the same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that also shows up in personal relationships too. When you think about it, I heard this person recently, I think I was looking on TikTok or something, and somebody said, they were talking about marriage was the topic. And they said, one of the things they had to realize as a man is that their wife grew up in a different household with different sets of rules. And so when he first got married and he expected things to go a certain way in his house, it was based on how he was raised and the experiences that he saw related to how a marriage, a relationship should work. And he said it was once he realized that we are two different people merging our lives together, that immediately opened him up to where he had to compromise. He had to be more willing to meet in the middle to now develop what will be their new norms. And I think that that's also true of what happens with leaders. Leaders get into position, whether they are newly appointed leaders with little experience as a leader, or they've been leading for a while, and they forget that the people they're responsible for have come up in different, quote unquote, households with different experiences as to what leadership should look like. And so now, how do they build a connection and a relationship, a new set of working norms in order to help the whole team and each individual elevate and accomplish their dreams?
Absolutely. I think that is so critical and so key for leaders to remember. We all think we're going to the same place, but based on our experiences, based on our culture, based on our own desires, when we look forward and we think we're looking at the same goalposts, some people are seeing something entirely different. And it's so important to level set and set expectations and make those expectations clear to say, okay, well, I get where you're going. That's mad cool. Unfortunately. Or fortunately, this is actually, as the leader, what I'm seeing and what I'm expecting. And sure, as you mentioned, there can be some compromises because maybe you do know something that is better. Maybe you've seen something or you've done something a different way that I've never experienced. And your shared experience and our collective experiences can actually make it even better than maybe what one person envisions on their own. But I think it's so important that those conversations are had. And even the underlying understood that we really don't look at the same things and see exactly the same thing. And It's crazy how perspective, culture, experience really shifts and shapes how we can look at a common thing and make it different from person to person.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
So as we're just talking about your struggles around leadership, and one of your favorite pieces I think I pulled from that was motivating, engaging, and finding that secret sauce to get people as hyped up and as energetic as you are about making it to this particular goal. I'm just curious, when you take it backwards in leadership in general, what does leadership actually mean to you?
Leadership to me means being responsible for more than yourself, but being accountable for your individual actions and contributions towards the outcome. To expand on that, being responsible for more than yourself, when you accept the responsibility of being a leader, whether you're leading one person, two people, or 100 people, when you accept that responsibility, you are also accepting the dreams, the goals, the commitments of those people. You're accepting also the organization's responsibility to support their people. Whatever ambitions or commitments that the organization makes, you now take those on. That's why in many workplaces, leaders and individual contributors have this us versus them dynamic that exists, right? Oh, here comes the leader. We got to stop talking and saying what we were saying about the organization, because leaders often take on the persona of the organization because you're in leadership. You're responsible for every promise that the organization has made, both to its employees as well as to its customers and stakeholders. But you're also, as a leader, as an individual, accountable for your actions. No leader should be absolved for why their team culture sucks. It can't be that everybody on their team is a bad person, a bad hire, whatever excuse the leader or the individual wants to insert. You have to be accountable for your contribution towards that outcome just as much as your people are. And that's how every leader should come to the table with their people, to try to find a shared goal and common ground that we can work towards. That ultimately, I need you to know that I am accountable for how my people show up in the workplace for their customers and for one another. For me as a leader, one of the things that I pride myself on, I remember having a team, and on that team, it was inside sales, and we were in logistics, and my people were interacting with both customers that paid the bills, but also transportation providers, truck drivers, et cetera, that you see out on the roads as you're driving. They were interacting with those stakeholders as well. And I would see that my people would sometimes treat their customers one way, but treat the carriers a little bit different, almost like they were second-class citizens. And so I remember having a meeting with my people and saying, you are in the middle. You have to work with both parties in order to be successful in your role. If you treat your customers great and they pay you on time, but your carriers have bad service, guess what? Your customer's going to stop paying and you're going to lose your business. So you need both of them. And therefore, you have to treat them as if they're both equally important to you. And you have to stand on your non-negotiables in terms of the service you provide and what you expect of the people you work with. I said, it's no different than if you all show up late to work. Guess who the company is going to come to and hold accountable for why you all are showing up late to work? It's going to be me. Even though I'm an early bird, I like to show up 20 minutes early to work and anything that I do so I can get a good seat, as my mother would say. It doesn't matter if my team shows up late. I am accountable for your actions. And so we have to have a shared governance model aligned to a common goal that we're all pursuing. And we have to have some non-negotiables about how we can get there. There are some things we can give grace on, but there are some things that we can't. And we have to have that agreement upfront, communicated, and signed on a dotted line that we will adhere to that. So yeah, I think that that's what leadership is. It is being both responsible and accountable for how you and your team shows up.
I love that. I think some of that is missing these days in the workplace, is that being accountable and responsible and being invested, I think, on how your team shows up, and realizing that you play into that as the leader, right? As the leader, whether it's a first-time manager, frontline manager, highest levels, how you show up actually shows your team how they should show up as well. But that doesn't work in a vacuum without understanding also having clear expectations, aligning what the boundaries are around what is allowed, what isn't allowed, and also helping the team articulate and ensure that you're articulating as well, what is the expectation here and how should we operate in whatever microcosm that we're in.
Absolutely. You've heard me speak before. I usually start every keynote the same way, asking the audience how they're doing. I expect to get half of an answer, low response, because people still filling each other out. And I always follow it up with, did you know that energy is contagious? The question is yours worth catching? And the minute that I say that, It's that wake up call that how I show up is generally how other people show up. We mirror that. And so for leaders, when you show up in the workplace and you feel or you demonstrate this haphazard mentality and presence, you're not excited about work, how can you expect your people to show up and be excited about work? Energy is contagious. Is yours worth catching? 9 times out of 10, it's not. And that's why your team isn't performing.
Ooh, I really like how you put that, is how your energy shows up, is how other people react to it. And if your energy isn't showing good things, it shows your team, well, do I need to show good things? Because my leader isn't necessarily showing good things. So I really like thinking about how our energy shows up. And I think when you tie that to something you said earlier around, no matter whether you're a formal leader or an informal leader, you're always leading yourself.
Yep.
And to show up with yourself and with your energy, that is such a powerful and contagious thing.
I'm a leader of one every single day.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, would you say because as you mentioned, I've seen you speak. That's how we actually met, is seeing you at a keynote at a conference a couple of years back. Would you say that your energy is your superpower?
Yeah, I guess. I've never been asked that question. Well, I take that back. I've been asked, or people have pointed out what they think my superpower is, and nobody has ever called out my energy as that being my superpower. But I think if I look back, I would say my energy is my superpower, because if I show up with good energy consistently, people look forward to interacting with me. And so whereas other people would say my superpower is galvanizing people behind a cause to take action, the only reason that those people are energized to want to take action behind this thing is because I showed up with great energy and enthusiasm about it to begin with. So I would say my energy is definitely my superpower.
Having seen you speak, you show up with such energy. You're so high energy and so exciting when you step onto that stage. And I remember you were talking about hyping the crowd up and bringing their energy and getting it higher. So I was, I could totally see that. And then when you're in your regular moments, like as we're talking, you still have this energy that's like, it's calming, but at the same time, it's you can still feel like you're like bursting at the seams to do things.
Yeah, I definitely am always on the edge of my seats, because if I show up to something, I'm excited about it. Like if I'm not excited about it, I don't want to participate in it. There's no point. I've been described as a friend of mine. He gave a testimonial and he said, Vic is one of those people that he could make reading a menu sound interesting. And I don't know how or why I show up that way, but it has worked for me and served me well up to this point. So I think I'll keep it going.
I agree. I think you should keep it going. My dad is I say this, the best and the worst, which is he was a teacher and a preacher.
Oh, wow.
And he's Caribbean. So I'm going to put that out there. So for those who know, teacher, preacher, and Caribbean, as your father, is the best of times and the worst of times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can only imagine what those conversations were like when he wanted you to go the right path.
Yeah. He had a couple of ways of galvanizing us.
Yeah.
But I say this because one of the things, being a preacher and a teacher, he was always like, oh, you can sing, you should be in the church, and you should be doing this and this with your message, and you should be all these things. And I used to say to him, Dad, I think for me, what's more important is how I show up in every room. My nature is like very supportive, very collaborative. I do tend to be very bubbly and perky. And I said, I think my energy is how I show up. I don't need to be flashy. I don't need to necessarily be on the stage to do X, Y, or to get people to do this thing or to influence them. I feel like in some ways I'm a bit more of a quieter influence just by how I carry myself and the things that I am and what I believe in and my integrity and who I am shows up with me in every moment. And that is how I like to say I influence and impact things versus I need to be in a certain role to do that. I think you can do it every day with your energy.
Absolutely, you can. I often would tell young people when I speak to them, some people hustle to be seen while other people hustle to disappear. Everybody has different goals. We're all hustling. It's just going to look different for everybody based on what their goals are. Some people hustle to be seen while others hustle to disappear. Which one are you?
But as we're talking about kind of superpowers, I'm also curious about, what do you feel that as a leader, as a father, as a person living in this world, what do you still have to work on every single day?
Making sure that I show up for people in the way that they need me. More specifically, a year ago, I had a coach, and I think it's important that everyone gets coaching. Every coach needs a coach. And if your coach doesn't have a coach, you need to get rid of that coach, by the way. But I had a coach, and we were talking about my goals and what I wanted to accomplish. And my buckets that are important to me are faith, family, fitness, and finances. And so we were talking about those buckets and how you define success in each of those categories for my life. And so for me, with the family bucket, success is defined by how I show up for my family and how they need me. And so he asked me this challenging question that I so appreciate him asking me. He said, how do you know you're showing up for them in the way that they need you to show up, as opposed to how you assume they need you to? And it was in that moment that I realized I was assuming how they needed me to show up because we've been together for so long and we know each other so well. All of those are true. But at this stage, am I showing up for them in the way that they need me to show up? And so he challenged me to one-on-one talk with each of my family members, my wife, my kids, sit down one-on-one and ask them the question, am I showing up for you in the way that you need me to show up? How do you need me to show up for you? That conversation opened my eyes so much and gave me so much insights that majority of the times I was right. I was guessing right. But there were moments that I missed the mark and I didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. And it's improved my relationship with each of my family members. And so you fast forward, you take that into the professional space. It made me think about my team, my colleagues, my peers, those above me, those below me. Am I showing up for you in the way that I'm assuming because we've worked together and gotten to know each other? Or are there gaps into how I'm showing up for these people that I care about, that I work with on a consistent basis? And so that's opened the door for me to have more deeper conversations with the people in my sphere of influence. How am I showing up for you? That's something that I'm going to continue to work on.
Ooh, I love that. That is so powerful. I think, especially with people, I'm going to put you in this bucket. When we're so high energy and positive, and I don't know about you, I'm a problem solver. That's part of my project management mindset. I see a problem, let's solve it. And I really had to learn that sometimes that's not what somebody else needs of me in that moment. And sometimes it's actually okay to say, okay, I want to jump into problem solving, but what do you need to rant right now? Because I can be quiet and I don't need to say anything.
Oh my gosh, I'm just like you. I'm a problem solver. And it was some years back when my wife said this to me. She said, sometimes when I come to you with a problem, I don't necessarily need you to fix it. Sometimes I already know how to fix it. I just need somebody to listen. I just need a sounding board. Mm-hmm. And so that got me to shut up. And that turned into, when she now vents to me, I ask, do you need me to take any action? Is there anything you need me to do? Nope. Just needed you to listen. Just needed to get that off. Oh my gosh, it's improved our dynamics so much.
It's so crazy how that little question is, what do you need right now?
Yeah.
Is this a ranting moment? That's cool. I ain't mad at you. Just so I can set my brain and shut my lips.
Yeah. Two ears, one mouth. Got to put it to work.
Right? Absolutely. All right. Well, we've come to the end of our time, but I always give one last second to say, was there anything that we didn't touch on that you would love to leave with the audience?
Anyone who follows me knows that I love quotes. I love affirmations because I think they hit home. And so there are a few that are on my heart right now that I think are relevant to this conversation and to your audience who would tune in. If it's all right, I would love to share a couple of them.
Yes, please.
All right. First one is, you can't solve the problems in your life with the same information that caused the problems in the first place. You can't do that. And so I share that quote because I challenge people to try to think of new ways to fix what's broken. You have to go educate yourself. You have to expand your sphere of ignorance, that edge of circle that describes or defines how much you know, because the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't. And there's so much more information out there. So you definitely can't solve the problems in your life with the same information that caused them in the first place. The next one, especially as it relates to leadership, is whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. This was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way, unfortunately. Whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. Whatever you don't take action to fix, that means you're actually accepting of it. You actually might even like it and enjoy it. And so therefore you keep it around and keep it a part of your life. Whatever you're not changing, you're choosing that willfully. And so anything that comes with that, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, you got to accept that. That's accountability. That's accountability.
I like that one.
You like that one?
I do, because I think we forget that inaction is action.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Probably the last one is, it speaks to the technician in me. In sports, I wasn't the biggest, fastest, strongest. I was talented. I was gifted and blessed, but I wasn't the biggest, fastest, or strongest where it mattered. And it wasn't until later in my professional career that I came to appreciate this affirmation, this quote: your talents won't always take you out of your situation. Your talents won't always take you out of your situation. And I think far too many of us use the talents and gifts to elevate our lives. For athletes, right? We play as long as we can and we rely on our talents. We're more talented. We can jump higher. We can run faster. That gets us to where we need to go. In the professional world, many of us are gifted in a lot of different areas, and we rely on those talents because they've helped us to be successful. But one of my favorite books, all-time favorite book by Marshall Goldsmith, is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It's a great book for anyone who's looking to elevate their lives. You've reached a certain level of success and you're trying to figure out, how do I get to the next level? It's not something big. It's something small. There are small tweaks that you can make, which means you got to go beyond your talents. You're going to have to make small tweaks to existing capabilities. And that's where you're going to see huge gains. So I challenge this audience. I challenge anybody who's within earshot of this particular message to remember that your talents won't always take you out of your situation. What are you willing to do to elevate your life? That's what I would leave the audience with.
Thank you. Those are all, wish we had more time to dig into those nuggets. We might have to do a part 2 just to talk about them. But thank you so much, Coach Vic. I loved hearing your story and all these little nuggets that you gave. I do want to give you an opportunity. Do you want to say where we can find you on the socials?
Absolutely. Coach Vic. You can best find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm under Coach Vic 20. You can also visit my website at coachviclive.com, coachviclive.com. There you can go learn a little bit more about me, my background. You can learn about the topics that I specialize in for keynotes as well as workshops. And if you're someone who is looking for coaching, whether it be one-on-one or small group, that's the best place to contact me and look at a couple of my coaching programs, but you can always reach out if you want to have a conversation. I also want to take this moment, JD, to thank you for thinking enough of me to invite me on your platform. This was an amazing experience, an amazing conversation. You are absolutely a great host, and I cannot wait to see where this show goes and what you continue to do in your journey. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Coach Vic. I appreciate that so much. We met as you doing a keynote, and so he is available to speak, guys. He's phenomenal. So reach out to him on his socials to get him to come out and do a keynote for you. And so I wanted to share your message, your energy, and your nuggets of wisdom with everyone who will ever listen to my podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, JD.
You're welcome, Coach Vic.
To my audience, hope you enjoyed today's session of Fixing Your Crown Boo. You will be able to see us upcoming soon. Thank you very much.